Today I'm going to give you a bit of a lens on my involvement or investment into Bitcoin. So I got on to Michael Saylor, who I think is the grandfather, the godfather of Bitcoin, right? His company's gone all in. I think his first investment was 250 million, then 750. He's in big time, right? I came across Michael, I've known him for a while. He was the go-to person in 2008, 2009 when Bitcoin launched into the market that companies like Bloomberg met with and interviewed. So I've been following him since then. Specifically what I want to do is I want to talk about my lens on it, on how I moved my investment into it, right? I want to talk about the emotion of it. Because what I think happens in the market is people think, there's a lot of negativity, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of negativity about Bitcoin. FTX certainly didn't help, and some of those other companies that have fallen over don't help the confidence in the market. My experience was this. So I've been researching Bitcoin, researching the market, cryptocurrencies as well. By the way, I don't think Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. I think it's a digital currency or it's digital real estate. I think it's an asset class. I don't think it's cryptocurrencies. I'll explain that in a little bit. I've been researching this for many months, right? I want to diversify my investments. I normally invest in property and in startup businesses. Those are the two verticals that I operate in because I know them and I sort of grew up in that space, right, in the startup space. So I'm very confident in being able to go into a company that's turning over $500,000 and turn it into $3 million in sort of 12, 24 months, right? I can do that. I'm very good at it. And either flip that company or sell it, bring on new shareholders, and off they go. Real estate's very solid. It's such a good investment. Like, what's wrapped up in real estate right now? Here's one thing I know. Investors want their money in real estate, even if those apartments and those homes are empty. Why? Because it's a safer bet. Like, the investment yield that you would get from real estate is pretty positive. Well, look, depends on what country. If you're in Africa, maybe not. Venezuela, maybe not. South America, a little bit dodgy. But if you're in, the US, even China, Australia, New Zealand, yield on property is still super positive and has been for many years and will continue to do so just because of the infrastructure and the governance around it, right? They're safe economies. Here in Australia, it's a safe economy. The government is in control of the economy, right? So there's not going to be a coup in Australia that's going to depreciate the value of your property. So I like property for that reason. I think it's secure. The yield is great. The return on investment is better than you would put in a 401k or a standard investment portfolio, right? But this whole cryptocurrency, Bitcoin thing, I've been thinking about for a long time. I opened up an independent reserve brokerage account probably in 2012. Put some money in it and just forgot all about it, like probably most of you did. And then when Bitcoin went to $80,000, I started to take note, right, which happened last year. And I know it's had some up and down. So the halving events that have occurred in previous times, what I did is I looked at the curve of what happened and I see consistency in the market historically. The SEC, it's now got governance wrapped around it where it's an approved ETF. Like, that's a game changer. Like, everyone was saying that the government are going to ban it. Well, they didn't. The opposite to that occurred. So there's all these things happening in the market with Bitcoin that are super, super interesting that give it solid financial yield for me personally, right? So here's what I did. 3, 4, 5, 6 months worth of research, and deep research. I've probably watched every interview of Michael's. I've interviewed a couple of people around Bitcoin. I've had meetings around it. I've read strategy, white papers and reports on it, right? And did some fiscal policy study in the US on it. I think it's pretty solid. So once I gathered the right information, here's my recommendation. Let me just interject for a second. Don't invest in it because of fear of missing out. I wouldn't do that because it's a longer game than you think it is. And all the data would dictate, if you put your money in for, say if you had 50,000 and you put it in for a year, you're not really going to get the return on investment. You might get 1%, 2%. But if you put it in for 4, that would be equitable. If you put it in for 10, now you're talking. And if you put it in for 50, you could potentially retire forever. So it's a long game. Look at the data, it's a long game. This thing has not come to the end of its maturity. It's still a baby. The halving events in sequential order have been closer together than they will for the last 2 or 3 or 4 halving events, right? So I think it's sitting at about 94% maturity, and I think it's fully mature at 2040, I believe. So we've got a long way to go. right? So there's still going to be opportunity to get on board. My comparative to that would be, say if I was buying Tesla stocks, right? So I have a couple of Tesla shares, Apple shares, not a lot, but I'm in that game, right? Nvidia, I'm probably going to get on board with that as well. So I'm really investing in companies that I believe in, that I love. I love the founders, I love the mission, and I love their contribution, right? So that's what I invest in. I think Bitcoin is full of contribution, so I'm on board with the ethos of it. So I think it's important to have that right ethos with your investment portfolio, and not just to fucking randomly walk through the forest like Bambi with a red dot on there for expecting to be shot in the head, right? Well, that was mildly aggressive, Lawrence. But you know what I mean? It's like, you've got to really think about why you're investing. The fear of missing out investment strategy never sort of works, right? I've read a lot about that and watched a lot of interviews surrounding that. Anyway, okay, I'll move on. So what I see, if I was to do a comparative of my confidence in it, so I'm not running towards fear of missing out, I'm running in the confidence in the research that I've conducted. If I was to invest in, say, Tesla and Apple stock, right? By the way, Buffett invested in Apple stock, right? It was a long-term play for him. He is probably one of the majority shareholders in Apple, right? Which is his biggest portfolio, which has generated the biggest return on him. So that was vertical for him. They own a shitload of Apple stock. So Warren knows, right? He can see the curve, the contribution, the type of company, the CEO, and the ethos of the company and what they're trying to achieve. But it took 15 years for Apple to get there. Like, I don't know if you remember, but Apple have been around a very long time. It was only the last 15 years where they've really started to curve. So in the 30-year history of the company, I'm paraphrasing, so don't quote me on that, or thereabouts, it's taken time for that to be the biggest, tech company on the planet and a consumer front end, right? How long's Bitcoin been around? It launched in 2009, January 1, 2009, right? The discussions commenced in 2008, and now it's been approved as an ETF by the SEC in America. So it's a long game. Like, there is still a lot of time to get on board with this. Now, here's the thing. What if you'd bought all the stock in Apple and Tesla as they just started on that curve, right? Where you buy them about here, but they end up here. That's what I think is going to happen to Bitcoin. Because the world needs an international currency that can move fast, right? And that's secure. So if you're in Africa and there's a coup and you own a house in Africa, this is just a random example, those soldiers can take that house off you, shoot you, or kick you out of it, and now they own that property. You can't do that with Bitcoin. So the instability of environments in which you reside, and there are some around the globe, say that real estate is not a good investment. Even a business or a company is not a good investment, because they could take that off you too. Governments could change policy that put your company and your business at risk. Real estate is not safe in some environments, but is in some environments, like here in Australia, super safe, right? So it's a good investment for me. But here's one thing I know, is that Bitcoin running off blockchain technologies and exponential technologies, it's probably super fucking secure. Can someone hack it? It hasn't happened yet. Can someone change it? It's impossible to do that just on the basis of how it's been structured, right? So I'm not going to go too deep into technologies. I'm just going to keep it on surface level and be sort of general at this time. But so it's super secure. So I've created confidence in it. Love it, man. I think this is awesome. So here's what I did. I got $50,000 and I put it into an account ready to transfer through into my independent reserve brokerage account. And then I got scared. And instead of 50, I transferred 30. Why did I do that? Because I'm still hesitant, right? Everything I just said to you, to validate me investing into Bitcoin, when I went to do the transfer, I put a 3 there instead of a 5. So I think the market's like that when it's new. So there was a little bit of scarcity in my mind. Shit, what if on the next halving event next week, everything just like drops into the ground? And then I know I just said that, it's a long game. So what the fuck am I scared of? I just wanted to run you through that. So I was super pumped. And then when I went to do the transfer, I pulled back a little bit and thought I'd diversify. By the way, I think diversification is for idiots. Many people say that. I know Warren Buffett says diversify, but he doesn't really diversify because 65% of his revenue came from one stock, right? That's what built his company. He diversified after that, not at the start. So what he's saying is put all your eggs in one basket, but watch the fucking basket, right? So that's what he really means. So be careful about diversification. So I was gonna go, I'm gonna buy 6 of the coins, I'll use that 20 and split it up just to lower my risk. In actual fact, my risk is that I'm going to do that. So I've just decided on this video that I'm not going to do that. And I'll log in this afternoon, get that other 20, and I'm going to put it on Bitcoin. So I'm in for 50. Think if I can get 300, 400, 500K in there, like you would put into a property, right? You'll put $150,000 deposit on a property, like 150 grand, and spend another 50 to 100 grand 3 years later to renovate it. That's 200, that's 250,000. And you have to pay the mortgage payments. Think about that. What if your yield in Bitcoin was 20%? Now you may get that on a property at exit, I get that, but you're not making money in the short term. But it could also be 10x. You could 10x that investment. That is where the excitement sits for me. I think it's totally secure. I think Michael Saylor is a legend. The economy needs it, because here's what I know about the economy. History repeats itself, right? If you look at every few hundred years, the economy collapses and rebuilds itself. And the same people that collapse the fucking economy are the ones who drive the economics. With Bitcoin, it gets rid of the rich who oversee the challenges of economics for societies, right? They're the ones who make all the decisions on how the money flows. This is void of those guys, right? So this is clean. That's what I like about it. It's super clean, it's super secure, it's international, it's global. You can transfer it anywhere on the planet immediately, move it around, split it up, shake it, put it over here, transfer it there. Now, people will go, oh yeah, but I can't buy a cup of coffee with it, Lawrence. Well, can you take your fucking house in your pocket to the local cafe and buy a cup of coffee with that? Like, it's the same. That's why I call it an asset. It's not a cryptocurrency, it's a fucking asset, right? So that's how I look at it. It's like, it's digital real estate. I really, really think that Bitcoin is digital real estate. Like, it's a long-term investment with a super high yield and super high security. If there is a fire, right? But the Bitcoin cannot burn down. No one can steal it from you. Well, you know what I mean. I can talk about that security thing in another wrap. But no one can change the legislation and the law to decrease its value. If there's a flood, you do not have to insure it. So there's so many benefits over and above real estate. Anyway, that was my experience. I just wanted to share that with you guys because I went through that a couple of days ago. Let alone the bank holding my money for 3 days because they thought someone hacked my accounts. But now those are turned back on. So you see what I mean? Even the banks did that. They saw independent reserve as an exchange and thought, well, hey, something is not right here. People are scared of it because they don't understand it. And there's too much negative noise about it. That's my take on it. Now, I could be wrong, and if I am, no harm, no foul. You can leave comments when everything crashes into the ground. But here's the thing, it's not gonna do that. 100% it will not do that. So I hope that helped on your journey with Bitcoin, you know, but I'm gonna go all in. I'm gonna get that other 20, drop it in there. And then I'm going to be consistently putting money into that investment portfolio every month. So I'm in my experience. So I hope you got something out of that so you can figure it out yourself. And you want to sort of look at the data online. I highly advise that you follow Michael Saylor. He is formidable and he knows more about Bitcoin investment than anyone else on the planet. That would be my advice. I hope that helped. See you later.